Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening for wherever you are joining this event today. My name is Titiratip Samritu. I will serve as your moderator for today. And welcome everyone from both the Zoom webinar and also from the Facebook Live for the event of International Day for Universal Access to Information, which is organized by UNESCO and Faculty of Communication Arts, Chulalongkorn University. Very warm welcome for everyone. And I think we now have some audience both in the Zoom and in the Facebook Live. Today's event is a part of the global celebrations of International Day for Universal Access to Information 2020. And the theme for the year is Artificial Intelligence, e-governance, and access to information. Sorry for some technical errors previously. So the theme of the year is artificial intelligence, e-governance, and access to information. So as you have seen on our agenda, that our event will be about the access to information, open data, and also the role of technology that will play in this issue. And also, we have this live stream on UNESCO Bangkok Facebook page, which you are more than welcome to share. It's for your friends, your colleagues who might be interested in our issue today. For participants in Zoom, you have the language option, the interpretation with the globe mark at the bottom of Zoom. If you have any problem, you can ask our staff. You can send a chat message to our staff directly about any technical issues that you have during our event. Okay, so our today's sessions, we will have two main sessions. The first one will be on showcase, which we will learn from experiences from 3 different countries about the access to information. And then after that, we will have a panel discussion in Thai language, of course, with the translation. But the issue will be focusing on the role of technology in the right to information or open data context. But before we start our two exciting sessions, let us have some opening remarks from our 3 distinguished guests. First of all, I would like to invite His Excellency Mr. Remco van Wijngaarden, the Ambassador of the Netherlands to Thailand, Cambodia, and Laos, to give an opening remark. His Excellency, please.
Thank you, and thank you for your introduction and your opening. It's a big honor for me to welcome you all to this online event on the International Day for Universal Access to Information, a very important subject. And I consider it a great privilege to provide a few opening remarks to this event that will focus on artificial intelligence, e-governance, and access to information in Thailand and the Mekong region. I think it's fair to say that perhaps more than ever, it is important that in a free, democratic, and pluriform society, people, citizens have free access to information. Information and knowledge make people more self-reliant, conscious of the world and all that it has to offer, and empower citizens and civil society while checking and balancing the power of their governments. Information supports societies in their struggles for emancipation. But as we all know, information can also simply make life easier. As we are assembled here today in this virtual surrounding, artificial intelligence and e-governance indeed play important roles in the digital world that we are all part of. Whether I would like to access my bank accounts, change my personal details with the city I live in, or arrange a parking permit for my car, we can arrange all these things with our smartphones while sitting on our sofas and watching our favorite Netflix series. So a lot of benefits, obviously. However, in spite of empowering citizens in their struggle for emancipation or simply make our lives easier, the AI-driven digital transformation also raises serious questions about fundamental rights and the ethical use of AI and e-governance. And some of these questions will be addressed today. The Kingdom of the Netherlands is a keen supporter of universal access to information, but at the same time, we encourage a critical and open conversation on the possible downsides of that principle. Therefore, we are indeed a proud supporter of this event and a supporter of the work UNESCO does in this regard. So, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to UNESCO for organizing this event and for providing the opportunity to say a few words before you kick off. So I wish you all a very fruitful, inspiring, and thought-provoking event. Thank you and enjoy your session.
Thank you very much, His Excellency. So our next opening remark will be from our co-host, the Faculty of Communication Arts, Chulalongkorn University. So we have the representative Assistant Professor Dr. Sukanya Sompiboon, the Deputy Dean from the faculty, to give some opening remark before we start the day.
ขอบคุณค่ะสวัสดีค่ะสำหรับทุกท่านนะคะที่ร่วมงาน International Day for Universal Access to Information 2022 Artificial Intelligence, E-Governance and Access to Information in Thailand and the Bangkok region นะคะในวาระที่ทั่วโลกกำลังเฉลิมฉลอง International Day for Universal Access to Information ถือเป็นเกียรติกับคณะนิเทศศาสตร์จุฬาลงกรณ์มหาวิทยาลัยมากค่ะที่ได้เป็นส่วนหนึ่งในการขับเคลื่อนการเข้าถึงข้อมูลข่าวสารได้อย่างเสรีและเป็นธรรมของภาคประชาชนนะคะเราตระหนักเสมอค่ะว่าความโปร่งใสตรวจสอบได้ของข้อมูลของภาครัฐและการเข้าถึงข้อมูลที่จำเป็นของประชาชนจะนำมาซึ่งสังคมที่อุดมปัญญาของประชาชนดังนั้นในนามตัวแทนคณบดีคณะนิเทศศาสตร์นะคะดิฉันขอเปิดงานในวันนี้อย่างเป็นทางการแล้วก็ขอให้การประชุมในวันนี้สร้างการตระหนักรู้ในเรื่องข้อมูลข่าวสาร Open Data รวมถึงการคำนึงถึงสิทธิในการรับรู้ข้อมูลข่าวสารของประชาชนทั่วหน้านะคะให้กับผู้ที่เกี่ยวข้องและผู้ชมทุกท่านในสังคมไทยแล้วก็ขอให้งานประสบความสำเร็จได้องค์ความรู้ที่เป็นประโยชน์กับทุกคนที่เข้าร่วมแล้วก็ประชาชนทุกคนต่อไปค่ะขอบคุณมากค่ะ Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sukanya. ขอบคุณมากนะคะ Okay, we now have our last opening remark from Mr. Shigeru Aoyagi, the director of UNESCO Bangkok. Of course, this is not this event doesn't only happen in this region. We also have the similar event in other part of the world as well. So, Mr. Shigeru, the floor is yours, please.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our distinguished panelists and guests. I would like to start by thanking His Excellency Ambassador Remco von Wijngaarden for his opening remarks and for his government's steadfast and vital support to freedom of expression, press freedom, and universal access to information, including through partnerships with UNESCO around the world. I also wish to warmly welcome and thank the Faculty of Communication Arts of Chulalongkorn University, which has been doing excellent work to boost digital literacy skills for Thai citizens and help strengthen outline online fact-checking in Thailand. Welcome, dear colleagues and friends, to this year's commemoration of the International Day for Universal Access to Information. You may be aware that this International Day is a relatively new one within the United Nations system, as it was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly only several years ago in 2019, having first been endorsed by UNESCO's 193 member states in 2015. Thanks to colleagues like you, and thanks to many others throughout the world, this International Day has been growing steadily all over the globe as a timely reminder of the critical importance of universal access to information as a human right, as well as an indispensable tool for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. Indeed, the human right of public access to information is more important than ever. providing accurate information to the public has been a policy imperative for saving lives and livelihoods during the COVID-19 pandemic. And providing efficient access to accurate information is now widely accepted as a practical and life-saving necessity. The adoption in many places in the world of open access policies in science has also played an important role in universal data sharing. Most recently, the pandemic has led to the largest annual total circulation of scholarly research articles in history, many of which have circulated for review at no cost to others, in part as an act of global solidarity. As you may know, the first DNA gene sequencing of the novel coronavirus was published on an open access data repository, which enabled researchers worldwide to rapidly develop diagnostics and eventual therapies and vaccines. In November last year, UNESCO General Conference unanimously adopted the first global recommendation on open science. This new normative framework will be used by UNESCO member states to facilitate open access and open data policies. Over the coming years, implementation of open science policies can facilitate the sharing and the development of scientific and medical knowledge around the world. The COVID-19 pandemic also has been accompanied by a parallel pandemic of disinformation. Health disinformation can be more toxic and deadly than disinformation about other subjects. It can be a matter of life and death for millions during a pandemic. Access to quality information makes our human right to freedom of expression meaningful to maintaining peaceful and informed societies, and disinformation works against that right. UNESCO and our partners have worked to protect and strengthen these human rights in 4 primary areas. 1, countering the contamination of the civic realm with disinformation. 2, supporting independent quality journalism. 3, empowering people through media and information literacy. And lastly, assisting member states in meeting international standards on freedom of expression. These UNESCO programs are designed to interface with governments, the media, the judiciary, security forces, and other sectors involved in maintaining human rights, freedom of expression, and access to public information and journalism. Artificial intelligence, or AI, may offer governments the best chance to accelerate the UN's Sustainable Development Goals by assessing larger data sets for evidence-based modeling and forecasts. Consequently, understanding the ethical and legal implications of the development and the use of AI has become a key part of UNESCO's support to member states. Last November, UNESCO member states also adopted the first international normative instrument on the ethics of AI, and just this month, UNESCO launched at the ITU UNESCO Broadband Commission for Sustainable Development a new toolkit for civil services on AI capacity building. It addresses the 3 competency areas. 1, digital planning and design. 2, data use and governance. And lastly, digital management and execution. Dear participants, the role of the UNESCO Secretariat in Bangkok will be to ensure that these new international normative instruments and tools related to universal access to information can be effectively mainstreamed among multi-stakeholder partners at regional, national, and local levels. I thus look forward to learning about and following up on the outcomes of today's discussions. Once again, I thank our distinguished panelists, speakers, and guests, and extend, on behalf of UNESCO, a warm thanks to everyone for joining us for this important public event. I wish everyone informative and fruitful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shigeru. And then now we have heard about the importance principles of the right to information and other related issues from our first three speakers in the opening remark. Next, we will have a keynote on the topic of World Trends Report on access to information implementation and lesson learned. I would like to invite Mr. Joe Hironaka, Advisor of Communication and Information Unit from UNESCO Bangkok, to give us more details about the latest trend. Please, Mr. Joe.
Okay, thank you, dear colleagues, for joining us on this day. This day commemorates and reminds us as a starting point that access to information is an integral part of human rights. Article 19 of the ICCPR and the same Article 19 of the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights protects the right to seek, to receive, and to impart information of all kinds, and it obliges state parties, 167 states in the case of the ICCPR and 192 for the Universal Declaration, to ensure the right of access to information for everyone, every person, without a distinction of any kind. Back in 1990, in other words, not so long ago, we had just 14 countries that had adopted legislation addressing the right to information. 14. Thailand holds the distinction of being the first ASEAN member country to enact a framework that addresses the right of access to information. And this was through the Official Information Act of 1997. Today, more than 135 countries and territories have adopted right to information legislation. So what might be going on? I should add that agreements in the form of regional conventions have been developed quite recently, and these can provide guidance in the field of access to information. So, for example, the Council of Europe Convention on Access to Official Documents, which entered into force in December 2020, may be described as the first binding international legal instrument which recognizes the right of access to official public documents held by public authorities. The African Union also adopted a model law on access to information for Africa. And other regional treaties, including in Latin America and the Caribbean, regulate the right to access of information on specific topics, such as on the environment. And so, universal international standards have been reflected in legislation in approximately 2/3 of UN member states just over the past recent decades. And these decades of legislative action also saw the growth of internet access, which has reached and then recently exceeded half of the world's population at the start of this decade. The internet itself provides the big data sets which fed the growth of artificial intelligence, and timed along with innovations in coding and advances in computational power, this access to data sets allowed AI to emerge as a tool for sustainable development achievement and evidence-based e-governance. This month, in fact, 10 days ago in New York, as my director, Shigeru Aoyagi, just mentioned, UNESCO's Director General and Nokia's CEO co-launched a new competency framework on artificial intelligence for civil service officials. And this report is based on the premise that AI should give civil servants the best chance of developing effective policies to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And whether it's line ministries responsible for education, health, economic and social services, and so on. But in order to adopt AI to sustainable development and effective e-governance goals, civil services at all levels will need core competencies addressed in this report. So to wit, for example, on assessing the ethical and legal implications of the collection, the organization and use of AI technologies, on ensuring that data used to train AI systems will be secure and protected from tampering, on being aware of the privacy implications of AI systems during and also after development, and on sharing high-value open data sets with external organizations to also use in AI development, as well as using published open data in AI systems to avoid recollection of data, and to adhere to or to iterate on all relevant legal frameworks for data protection, for privacy, as well as human rights frameworks, including access to information. So we will soon share a link to that report in the chat. And actually, I guess your expectations are for me to address some findings brought from UNESCO's monitoring and reporting on access to information, known as Sustainable Development Goal Indicator 16.10.2. And for those of you who are not overly habituated with UN jargon, that's of course the reporting indicators 10.2 of the 16th SDG. SDG 16 broadly addresses peace, yeah? But it also addresses building, quote, effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. Effective, accountable, and inclusive. And indicator 10.2 assures reporting and monitoring of, quote, the number of countries that adopt and implement constitutional, statutory, and/or policy guarantees for public access to information. And because of this reporting and monitoring component, SDG 16.10.2 serves as an incentive for countries to improve their legal and regulatory frameworks and to improve their implementation and enforcement of access to information, legal and regulatory frameworks. So you can see a correlation, yeah, between the large number of countries that have recently adopted access to information laws and the very existence of SDG 16. So if nothing else, perhaps the utility of SDGs in promoting human rights-based legislation should feel a bit more clear through this example, in case you may be skeptical. And of course, the 16.10.2 reporting and monitoring is supported by the Secretariat of UNESCO, of which I'm a part. For states that are developing access to information legal frameworks or who are improving existing ones, UNESCO advocates the following things. The right to information will be fully realized, most fully realized, when access to governmental information is guaranteed by legislation. In practice, this means all information that is held by public bodies should in principle be subject to disclosure to the public. States should seek to disclose this information proactively, and states should legislate a framework that includes independent oversight to strengthen adherence and safeguard against abuses. And this is a moment when perhaps I apologize that there are no PowerPoint slides to look at, but I can paste some of these bullet points into the chat. So the purpose of UNESCO reporting on 16.10.2, the intention is to provide a platform to spotlight best practices, main areas of and for improvement, and to draw conclusions on how to proceed with further normative work. And going back to the theme of this year's commemoration, this includes considering the impacts of AI and digital transformation on such areas as the right to access information and the right to privacy. UNESCO Secretariat supports member states to advocate for mutual reinforcement of the right of access to information and the right to privacy. And with respect to the most recent reporting, we note that policy guarantees for access to information generally also include an oversight body and a requirement for the public bodies to appoint officers handling access to information issues. UNESCO Secretariat also is tracking progress on access to information, and in 2021-2022, through legal guarantees and their implementation, and with a particular focus on the mandates, sustainability, and activities of national oversight institutions and bodies. We can report a broader recognition about the role of access to information as a critical component for rebuilding communities and for sustaining public services. And the COVID-19 public health information response is a broad case study on the importance of effective and accurate public access to information. And this recognition is valuable. Through SDG monitoring, UNESCO is able to encourage more voluntary national reviews, as well as focus on access to information related issues within the Universal Periodic Review process. This intergovernmental mandate for UNESCO to monitor access to information also allows us to focus on marginalized groups. And as an example, UNESCO and the Carter Center published a report this spring on promoting gender equity in the right of access to information. And it illustrates a dysfunction that basic access to information remains elusive for half of the world's population, for women in many places. So again, as an offshoot of this monitoring function, UNESCO is able to offer its support to member states to promote gender-sensitive right to information laws and policies, and we will advocate for gender-sensitive access to information practices. Examples of both are provided in the report I mentioned, and we will share that link. And finally, I want to highlight an excellent tool in the form of a MOOC on access to information laws and policies and their implementation. Again, we will be sharing the link in the chat. But this is addressed to states with access to information legal guarantees, those who already have them, as well as states that have not adopted such guarantees, but can be able to boost access to information for their citizens by considering similar incremental steps. And those sorts of pragmatic steps forward are demonstrated through case studies and through good practice examples. Access to information should be underscored as an integral human right. There's no ambiguity there. But access to information encompasses core principles of good governance: participation, transparency, accountability. And so today's International Day commemoration, very much thanks to you, is an opportunity once every year to think about something whose importance to our future we don't always think about. And I apologize for this very long introduction. I invite you to re-energize if you're still able. And we look forward to this outstanding group of speakers. I want to recognize UNESCO colleagues, particularly Sasyon and Kulwani and Rohan, for their support in organizing this day. And my own responsibility will be to listen to you today and to try to understand and internalize the information and recommendations that you will be presenting. So I thank you very sincerely for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Shigeru, for your keynote. And that includes a lot of information of the recent trends in the international and regional level. We've seen the example from Europe, some example from Africa.